Individuation. Individuation is one of the most important aspects of healing. In fact, it's amazing that this is our first time in 2 years actually getting to the subject. I'm fascinated by how many different topics we can talk about around this central concept of healing. But at the very core of what happened to us in our childhood was that we failed to individuate, or in a later relationship, we lost our individuation. Your individuation is just a big word for your sense of self. It's essential that the sense of self comes from the self outward instead of the outside inward, right? So our sense of self needs to come from the inside and be reflected out instead of us getting our sense of self from the outside and then reflecting that inward. But we start off with that outside as children, as very young children, as toddlers, getting our sense of self from the outside, right? The baby that's looking up at the mother for its cues. Am I loved? Am I important? That's where the original sense of self is gained, right? Looking up at the caregivers, seeing their reactions, seeing the way they're treated, what the caregivers are telling you about yourself. This is where the original traumas can form. Because now if you have caregivers that are too harsh, that are not validating, that are not meeting your needs or not meeting your emotional needs, this can cause you as an individual a debilitation in your individuation. It can slow down your ability to individuate because now you become desperate for the outside to validate you internally. So now you're searching even harder, you're looking even harder for the outside to validate you internally. And if we never grow in our individuation process, then as we become adults, we're not equipped for the realities of an adult relationship. And this will cause us to seek out other individuals who haven't individuated themselves, people who are incomplete, people who are abusive, people who are narcissists. Narcissists are looking for prey that has failed to individuate. They will know who you are because you will be people pleasing. You will be taking suggestions as commands. You will be doing the most to gain the attention, approval of others. You will be trying to hide, trying to make yourself invisible. You will be not setting boundaries. You will be having trouble asserting yourself. And that gives them the clue. That's what tells them, I think I found someone who didn't individuate well. This will be perfect. Why? Because the narcissist also has not individuated, but they've gone the opposite direction to become a predator of those who haven't individuated. So what the narcissist decides to do is to get their needs met by finding someone, maybe like your old self, who was doing all of those people-pleasing behaviors and lacked the assertiveness and lacked the boundaries and lacked the strength. They need someone like you to prey upon so that they don't have to be an individual themselves. That way they don't have to take the accountability, the blame. That way someone is worse than them that they can point to, which will be you, their victim. They're going to beat you down into a position so that everyone sees them as superior to you. And so they can gain a sense of superiority on a basis of comparison. The narcissist also failed to individuate. And now here you are. And you're saying, I have insecure attachment. You're saying, I have avoidant attachment. But whatever type of dismissive attachment, all of it is your failure to individuate. Because you don't know how to handle the other person doing their thing and seeing yourself as a whole, complete, secure individual without needing other people. Well, where were we supposed to learn how to individuate in the first place? In the childhood. It is the parent's responsibility in raising the child to help the child to individuate gradually over time. That is what growing up is supposed to be. That's what raising a child is all about. The idea is you are trying to help your child, who was once literally a part of you or a part of your wife, to grow into its own individual state as a full-grown adult, emancipated, completely autonomous in itself, with no need for you. That's the goal. If you do parenting correctly, you're supposed to make the child individuate over time, facilitate the natural individuation of the child. It will naturally become more independent, right? Your key is just don't fight that. Facilitate it. What does that mean? That means as the child starts to express its individuality, as the child starts to grow, you want to facilitate that growth. Right from the time that you need to help it to learn to walk on its own, that's individuation, to talk on its own, to eat on its own. Child has to be taught to do everything. But the purpose of everything you're teaching the child is so that it can be an individual. Unfortunately, narcissistic mothers try to stunt the growth of the daughter in certain areas. So now when the daughter expresses some idea of her own, the narcissistic mother, no. How dare you have a thought different than mine? When the daughter tries to have an emotion that's unique to itself, the narcissistic mother, hey, stop that. Stop crying. Stop feeling that way. Stop being angry. Stop being sad. I want to see total mirroring of my emotion at all time. What I feel, you feel. Also, stop being happy. If I'm not happy, you're not happy. You see how that stunts the individuation of the child? So the child feels like, okay, my feelings don't matter. I need to stuff my feelings. I need to hide these feelings. I need to repress these feelings. Some parents are just too strict. They set too many rules and boundaries and say no too much. Can I go hang out with friends? No. Can I go to the no. Can I get us no. Too much strictness creates in the child a desire, a need to get its individual needs fulfilled, and so it has to use lying and deceit. Strict parents create sneaky children. Again, overly strict parents create sneaky children, not good children. Children are not good. Like now you've made them more well-behaved by being strict. No, you've made them more sneaky so that they learn to hide their bad behavior. That's not the type of parent you want to be. The type of parent you want to be is, to the extent possible, calm, nearly laid back, someone that they can come to and talk to, someone that they feel comfortable exposing embarrassing details around, someone that they feel that they can be themselves around. This would mean that you have to not overreact. Oh, and those sneaky children grow up to be avoidant adults, emotionally detached adults. They can't show up for other people emotionally in their relationships because they had to suppress their own emotions. So now they got to basically go around lying or people pleasing to everyone else all the time. So all that strict parenting, all that extra strictness, that's just stunting the growth of the child. You want your child to grow up to be a confident, well-adjusted, very authentic person who speaks in truth, who acts in truth, who makes decisions internally. The way that you facilitate that growth is by not overreacting to their efforts to individuate. You must see it as natural, as normal, as inevitable, as to be expected. So when the child starts looking for more privacy, poor parenting is stunting the child. Hey, don't close your door in my house. This is my door. This is my room. You don't have the, why are you getting dressed over there? You can get dressed in front of me. I changed your diapers. Blip, blip, blip. All of that, you don't get privacy? Let me go through your phone. Let me go through this. Let me do, I'm reading your diary. I'm going, all that lack of privacy that you're creating for the child, you're stunting their individuation. You're stunting their growth. Now they're going to grow up to be avoidant, distrustful, or people pleasing, lying. All that strict parenting is creating sneaky children. So instead, when they express a need for privacy, you should extend, to the extent possible, the space for privacy as appropriate to their age. That's strange. She closed the door. Well, how old is she? Huh. She is getting older. Well, let me just knock on the door. Instead of bursting it open and telling her she doesn't have the right to click on it, just, hey, everything okay in there? Yeah. Okay, I just noticed you closed the door. You don't normally do that. Just wanted to make sure you're good. Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, I'll be in the living room if you need anything. Wow, was that so hard? Or is it that we as the parent are failing to individuate ourselves? Is it that you're putting your codependent, emotionally incestuous needs on that child so that they can't even get the room to grow and to breathe and to become their own individual entity? It's not acceptable. We're traumatizing children. You're traumatizing your child by not allowing them the space for that privacy. So likewise, if you're hitting that age, you're 19, you're 20, you're 21, you're in that in between, right? You're growing up, you're an adult technically, according to the law, but you're still kind of dependent on the parents. It is imperative that you assert your need for privacy. It is not acceptable for you to say, oh, I can't. My parents get mad if I try to get privacy. Snap out of it. You're not a child anymore. You must assert your need for privacy. So that means going to your parents respectfully and speaking to them about what you need. Hey, the other day I tried to close my door. This is what I need. Well, blah, 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 blah. Well, nevertheless, I just, it's my job to tell you what I need. So I'm just expressing to you what I need. That is assertiveness. Whether you're talking to a child, you're talking to your spouse, you're talking to your parents, it all works the same way. You respectfully let people know, here's where I stand, this is what I need. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you so much. Nevertheless, it's my responsibility to communicate to you, and this is what I need. Trust me, people hate those conversations so much, it's like a punishment in itself. They will actually give you what you need, despite all the protests, when you stand your ground, even though they don't like it, because the only thing they hate worse than giving you what you need is for you to come to them and tell them about what you need. They hate it. So they will eventually say, all right, just so I don't have to deal with that logical conversation anymore. I don't like it. I don't like hearing about their boundaries and needs. So recognize it. Now, if you're an adult, now you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you're out in the world. Okay, good. You're not having children, so you're not parenting. You reparent the self. You reparent the self. Understand your need for individuation. Understand your need for privacy. Stop it with every time your friends want to go out, then you go out. feeling like you have to stay living with your parents, you have to stay living with your family, you got to stay with people, you got to have a wife, you got to have a husband. Stop it. Recognize your need for alone time. Go live by yourself. Say no to your friends occasionally. Get some you time. As children grow, they also start to try to express their individuation and their desire to have relationships outside of the inner family, right? So then they get friends at school, or maybe they want to have a boyfriend or they want to have a girlfriend. Understand, it's about the process of individuation. Your overreaction just causes them to go covert. Getting too strict just causes them to sneak. You can't have a boyfriend till you finish college. Okay. All they're going to do is just sneak with all your strictness. That's not doing anything. What did you think that was going to do? You thought they were just going to be like, oh, okay, I'll turn off all needs for romantic connection and sexual desire, and I'm just going to be this perfect. What did you think was going to happen with the over strictness? It's your job as a parent to facilitate the growth of the child. So the proper way to handle it, as is age appropriate, is to say, okay, we understand that you would like to have these relationships with the opposite sex. Let's talk about it. Here's some of the dangers. Here's some of my concerns. I'm concerned about school. I'm concerned about your focus. So let's make a deal. If you're able to do this, then I can be okay with this. Have them come over here. Don't date them out there. Don't be alone, right? What am I doing? I'm creating boundaries so that I can facilitate the growth as is age appropriate. I don't have to tell my 14-year-old, no, you can't go out, you can't have this, you can't have that. I just need to tell her, here's the parameters in which you could have it. You keep your grades up. You do this around the house. You take care of that. And then you let them come over here. And you're welcome to. Yeah. Creating parameters. I don't need to tell my 19, 20-year-old, no, you can't have a boyfriend. I need to set the proper parameters. I'd ask that you be in at this time, as is age appropriate. Be careful about this. I want to warn you about these situations, these stories. Let me give you some wisdom. Let me give you some life experience. That is parenting. It's facilitating the individuation. They are going to grow. They are going to become individuals. We want that. That is a good thing. If you are at that age, 18, 19, 20, 22, right? You're starting to get, you're trying to get this independence and your parents are shutting you down. I'm trying to have relationships. I'm trying to date. My parents are shutting it down. Listen carefully. You need to assert the truth and face the consequences rather than try to please. This is a radical idea you may have never thought of before, but you need to tell your parents the truth, even if that truth means that you are disobeying them. So if you have a relationship, instead of hiding it, instead of sneaking it, let them know that it exists. Mom, listen, I know you disapprove. I do promise to keep my grades up. But there is a boy at school that I'm talking to. Let them have their overreaction. But to the extent possible, as long as you're protecting your physical safety, exist in truth. Tell them the truth. Let them see that there really is nothing they can do to stop you. And I know some parents do the most and they go to the extreme. And this can mean very serious consequences in your life. But the more you can get in touch with your personal power, the more you can assert it, the more they can learn. Unfortunately, since they're hard-headed, they have to learn the hard way that you are going to individuate. And so you just have to let them know the truth. And the moment that you become legally able to recognize that you may need, if your parents are so extreme that they're going to put crazy limitations and abusive, neglectful emotionally abandoning situations in your life, you may need to leave. It's a part of growing up. And so not all of us got the good supportive parents. So don't get all bent out of shape about it. It's about life. It's tough. We have to individuate one way or another. It's better to go ahead and do it now in your young adult life. And so that may mean that you have to leave, find someone who's going to room with you, find another family that you're going to move in with, get your money up, go and get your own place. You may have to go if the parent is just, you can't work with them. But we need to individuate. If you're in your 20s, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, right? You need to reparent the self around these issues. So when it comes to the relationships, we don't need to go to the extremes of people pleasing or abusing the other person or giving up your entire life because this person has now come into your ether. Set the boundaries and the limitations just like a good parent would. Hey, we can talk between these hours. Hey, I'm looking forward to this and that, but I don't do this and that in a relationship. Here's my limitations. A good, healthy parent facilitates the individuation. Does that make sense? Individuating is our process of developing a strong sense of identity. We need to learn who we are. Who we are is tied to what we want. What we want needs to be asserted. We have to develop our own personal opinions, not just adopt whatever everyone else is telling us to do. One of your biggest moments of individuation is the moment you disappoint your parents or caregivers. It's a sad, sad fact because we want everything just to be nice and harmonious. But one of the biggest moments of individuation is when you tell your parents, I know you want me to have this career, but that's not what I want for myself. As hard as it is to say that, in that moment, you will not feel like you don't know who you are. You won't feel like you lost yourself anymore. You won't fear engulfment anymore. Even if there are consequences to defying them, you will know who you are. And I'm telling you, the self is a worthy cause to fight for. And when you're a teenager, young adult, you're looking for a worthy cause anyway. You want to go and join protests and rebellions. This is your protest. The self. What I want to do with my life, my career, my religion, and my finances cannot be dictated by someone else. Why? Don't your parents know best? No, not for you, because you are the only human on the earth that knows you best. There is no one that knows you as good as you know you. So only you are uniquely qualified to make the personal choices in life that are so important, like what your career will be, whether you'll be continuing your education beyond what's legally required, finances, spirituality, what's good for your mental, emotional health, what's good physically for you. These things have to be determined by you ultimately. And so I know it can be hard to go against people you put up on a pedestal, but maybe take them down off that pedestal and see them eye to eye. Recognize that even though you're a new adult, you lack experience, and your parents have more experience than you, they're your fellow adults now. And so what they're good for is that experience. Advice, wisdom. Tap into your parents for their advice, for their wisdom. Well, what do you guys think? But take it as suggestion, take it as advice based on their experience. It could be incredibly helpful for you. Incredibly. They've made so many dumb decisions. That's the truth. They've made so many dumb decisions, and chances are they love you. And if they love you, then they're probably trying to help you to not have to go through the same level of suffering. But they think that the way to do that is to control that you go this way or you go that way, but they don't really know. They don't know the future. Only you know what it's like to be you. And so ultimately, you're going to have to make the very difficult life decisions for what you're going to do. Take their advice, but don't adopt other people's directions, advice, opinions automatically as your own. You take it in to the conscious mind, you analyze it, and then you make a decision. At the end of the day, you're going to have to live with yourself. Why doesn't it work to just let other people decide for us on the big decisions? Why doesn't that work? Think it out. Think it out now. What would happen if you let someone else dictate what you were going to do, how you were going to live? Let's say in the best case scenario, they give you pretty good advice. And so you ended up financially successful. Well, as you're getting the praise and as you're getting the accolades, how would you feel? There's part of you that would feel a little lost, a little sad, and a lot like an imposter. Because everyone's telling you how great of a doctor or a lawyer you are, and you're like, I don't even know if I ever wanted to do this. I don't know if this is the best thing I really could do or could be doing. This isn't me. If it's not you, if it's not authentic to you, then in the end, the success in itself is like a failure. Because what good is gaining the world if you've lost yourself? If your motivation is to please your parents, it doesn't exist. You can't make another person happy. But let's just say it were possible to please the same parents that have never been pleased since you've been a child. But let's say you got there and they said, we are so happy because of your decisions. We sleep better at night. We wake up in the morning with the birds chirping and the sun shining. We're so happy because you did everything we told you to do. Never mind yourself. Okay, how would you feel? Resentment. There's an underlying bitterness to, well, la-di-da. I'm glad you're happy because I just sacrificed everything. My mental health, my emotional health, who I am is compromised. I don't know what I am. The relationships I've gotten into, the things I've let guys do to me, in the process of just trying to ignore me, trying to pacify the pain, the drug addiction. I'm glad you're happy. That's how you would feel. You're not going to be like, yay, everything's good. It doesn't work that way. And the reality is those are the best case scenarios. In real life, that doesn't even happen, friend. They don't get to a point where they say they're happy. You don't become the most successful at it. You crash and you burn. And you have to experience the pain of failing at someone else's dream. I am begging you, take the risk of failing at your own dream. Trust me, take it from a guy who's failed at his dream many times over. It's not that bad. You have a lot to show for it in the end. You learn things for the music career that never made it, for the acting career that never got off the ground, for the book that you struggled to write that never sold. You learn from it. And in the end, you can always go and do all the other things that people advise you to do, but you won't feel like you lost yourself, like you left yourself behind. You will feel like you know exactly who you are, and you're able to differentiate what was truly your failure and what is the failure of society. Because the reality is we don't live in a perfect world that has a perfect slot for every person. And so if the world fails to give you a perfect slot to fit in, you and your own failure are able to say, That's okay. That wasn't me. It's just an imperfect world. You can be happy. You can be spiritually centered, grounded. You can be mentally sound. That's better than all the money in the world. There's nothing better than having your mind. The financial setbacks of failing at your own dream are temporary setbacks. Becoming successful but losing your mental health, lifelong issue. What good is your college degree when you're in a mental hospital and they won't let you out because they by law don't have to? Scary stuff. What good is a big prestigious job to someone who has unalived themselves? I'm not trying to be graphic. I'm telling you the truth. You have one job on this planet, and that's to take everything that God gave you and to produce with it. But you're the only one who knows what's in your hand. So therefore, your parents can't make the decision for how the rest of your life will go. Their job was to facilitate successful individuation. Your job now is to take that baton and run with it.